Hello guys, welcome back to another Predecessor video. Today we're just going to do a quick 1.4 tier list. The patch has been out for about a week now, a little bit longer. I feel like I've gotten a good enough grasp on the meta, at least from ranked and watching people scrim and play some custom games in the current patch. So I feel like I've been able to get enough of a gauge that I can at least start give you guys some information in terms of like what I think is strong, at least at the high level. Obviously at the lower level it might be a little different, or like in the mid level there might be a slightly different meta, but as far as the top end goes, I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on where most characters stand at the moment. So again, we're just gonna start with Argus. I think Argus is pretty bad. I would say he's probably one of the worst characters in the game at the moment. He got nerfed pretty hard in the last patch. His cooldowns are just incredibly long, and his damage is just not what it used to be, that's for sure. So I think he's probably one of the worst characters in the game right now. So for that reason, I'm just gonna put him in C tier. Moving on, we have Aurora. I think Aurora is just solid. Got buffed, not super insane, but she's definitely good. I don't think she's like a first pick, but she's definitely a solid frontliner. Can play three roles. Her support role got buffed a little bit because she has a little bit more range and a little bit more ability to actually play the game without self-rooting with the two, and an extra range increase and things like that, as well as some of the item changes. I think she's definitely better as a support now than she was on the previous patch, but still just like a good flex pick. Plays three roles. Nothing wrong with her. Belica, very strong, probably the second best mid laner, if not the third best mid laner. Very good character. Got buffed. Ult's not a skill shot anymore, or ult's not a lock on, so you do have to aim it, but it did get buffed, so it silences, so you can cancel abilities like Gideon ult and things like that now. Her damage is still relatively good. You could play her ADC if you want to. The ADC build is not too bad. Haven't seen it that much, but when I have seen it, it has had success. I think people should experiment with it a little bit more. But as far as mid lane goes, still very solid pick, top of the food chain there, outside of maybe like one or two picks. Boris. Some people might think he's like S tier. I think he's A plus. I think he is very strong early game and like mid game. I do think he falls off a little bit towards the later stages of the game. I do find people building less anti-heal in this meta for whatever reason, and I think that's why people kind of struggle against him. He is very strong early game though, like he has insane clear compared to other characters and has good boxing potential early. His late game does just seem to fall off a little bit towards the like 25-minute mark or so. So for that reason, he's not S tier, but I do think he is a very good pick and a very strong jungler if you're playing jungle right now. Moving on, we have Countess, probably the first S tier pick. Very strong. I don't think she's the best character in the game. Like, I don't think she necessarily deserves a ban, but if somebody banned it, I wouldn't be upset. Personally, I wouldn't ban her. I think there are more ban-worthy characters, but if we had like four bans, for example, in ranked, that would probably be banning her within those four bans. But as far as like only having two bans, I don't think she's necessarily like top two characters in the game, but she's definitely like top three, top four. She's very strong, just not the best character right now. I think she is S for sure, though, very clearly S tier. Next up, we have Crunch. Crunch got nerfed a bit this patch, doesn't dash as far. Did get extra healing on his passive, so you don't need to go Mutilator anymore, which is kind of nice. But besides that, just kind of like an average character. I don't think he's great. I don't think he's bad. He's just solid A tier. Moving on to Dekker. I haven't seen her played much, but I mean, I still think she's an A plus tier support. I don't know why people aren't really playing her. She got buffed in the patch, but nobody's been playing her for some reason. I don't know why. Still a very strong support though. One of the best like CC characters in the game. Cage is fantastic. Her laning phase is good. Range CC is always amazing. I don't know why people aren't playing her as much, but she's still definitely an A plus tier character. Drongo, I think he's kind of fallen down a little bit. He was previously like an S tier character. I think on this patch he's a little bit of an A tier. A little bit more clunky to play with the ult not pushing you back unless you jump now. Gag grenade, much less reliable, not as good. Rad rounds, kind of buffed because you can get more rad rounds before it goes off, but it also means that your burst is worse because until it actually goes off, you don't get the damage. So, like, better and worse in some ways. I think he's definitely fallen down the list a little bit, especially with ADC's early game being nerfed. Like, they aren't as potent in the early game, so they don't scale as easily. He's still very strong late game, very good team fighter, but just not as strong as he was on the previous patch. Moving on, we have Feng Mao. I think Feng Mao is very hard to play. I would say for the average person, he's probably C tier. I think if you're really good at Feng Mao, he's probably like A plus tier. I think for the majority of people, he's probably somewhere in the B tier. So I'm gonna put him in B tier. I think most people probably would not recommend playing him right now. He does have the lowest win rate in the game, probably because he is a lot harder to play, especially compared to where he was. but he can snowball very fast and very hard if you actually get some early game kills. So I think if you're like really experienced on Feng Mao and you like are really comfortable with his kit, you could definitely pull it off at like an A plus level, like A plus level. I think most people will pull it off to like a B or a C tier. I don't think he's as bad as Argus, but his solo lane definitely is a lot worse. He's mainly a jungle now, I think. I just don't think people have figured out the build to make him really good. So for now, I'm just gonna keep him in the B tier. Moving on, we have the Faye. I think Faye is really good. I don't think she's like A plus tier. I think she's just solid. I don't think she hard wins any game, but I don't think she hard loses any game either. She's just a solid pick. Doesn't really have any losing matchups. Doesn't have any like hard winning matchups. People being faster does make her 2 a little bit harder to hit on this patch, as well as the people being able to play at further range, so you can't get that extra range advantage on the 2 as much easily. The ult is a little bit smaller, but it does pull people from a further distance, so it's like a little bit harder to escape, but it's also harder to get a big ultimate. So I think she's a bit of an A tier right now. Definitely a solid pick. Haven't been seeing her as much, but within the last few days, I have been seeing her picked a little bit more frequently. But the first few days of the patch, I didn't really see her at all. Definitely a solid pick though. Gadget. I think a lot of people read the patch notes and assumed Gadget was going to be like S tier. I think after playing Gadget and experiencing a lot of the changes, I think she's actually a B tier character. I think the bomb is really hard to hit comparatively to how it was in the previous patch. It's much smaller and people are a lot faster. The bomb gets thrown a little bit slower. It's a lot harder to hit. The root is fantastic. I think she's actually like a decent support right now. As far as mid lane goes, I think she just takes too long to scale. Games are ending in like 25 minutes, 26 minutes. If games were like 30, 35 minutes, I think she would be S tier for sure. But games are just too fast right now, and I don't think she can actually get to the point where her passive scales to a degree that allows her to just one shot people. So I think for now she's definitely in the B tier for the moment. Gideon, S tier character. This character is ban worthy in my opinion. The strongest mid laner by far. The root is insane. He's actually really good in support right now too. If you're interested in playing a Gideon support, the root is really strong. The ult is really good. You can't cleanse it anymore, so you're stuck in it basically. If you're against like FaZe, who's a great counter to FaZe, FaZe cannot pull people out of Gideon ult. So if you ult the ADC as Gideon, FaZe cannot pull her because it counts as a pull. So FaZe is not able to pull out of it since it's CC now. So if you didn't know that, very strong support, especially into FaZe. Other than that, just the best mid laner in the game right now. Incredibly safe after people can't follow the portal. In my opinion, ban-worthy character, but people haven't been banning him. People haven't been playing him that much either. It's kind of like 50-50. Sometimes you see him, sometimes you don't. He's by far the best mid laner, though. It's not even close. In terms of competitive play, like in scrims and things, I've been seeing him banned, but in comp, there's 4 bans instead of 2. But he's definitely been first picked / banned within comp. Again, comp has 2 extra bans, so like in terms of scrims or tournaments, a little bit different, but he's definitely up there, top 3, top 4 characters in the game for sure. Greystone, I think he's bugged right now. I think his ult isn't working correctly, like it's getting anti-healed even though it's not supposed to. Even so, I still think he's an A tier character, possibly an A plus tier pick. His ability to armor shred with his 1 is incredibly strong, especially combined with like Basilisk or Citadel. Unfortunately, due to the bug, I think he's like A tier. If it's not bugged, he just isn't healing a lot. If it is bugged, then it kind of lowers his rating a little bit. I would probably put him A plus tier if he actually healed off his ultimate, but currently he doesn't on the current patch. Again, not sure if it's a bug or not, but for the moment, he's going to be A tier. Grim, arguably the best ADC. I don't think any ADC is like ban worthy though at the moment. I think he's just like an A plus tier character. Probably the best ADC, not ban worthy though in my opinion. Definitely top pick worthy though, just not ban worthy. Very strong character, very strong boxing, a lot of attack speed now. He can chase people down. He's magical damage. Magic damage is very strong. Very good character right now. If you haven't played Grim ADC, I would definitely recommend playing some Grim. Grux, S tier character. This character is insane. Very strong laning phase, can play 3 roles now. His support is actually really good. The pull is just absolutely absurd. The distance, the way it lines up with the hitbox, like the pull is the reason this character is really strong right now. Minus the healing, like the laning phase is really nice because of the healing, but that's not why he's strong. He's just strong because the pull is one of the best engages in the game right now. It's basically an AoE Riktor hook that is borderline unmissable and pulls from a further distance than Riktor hook. It's very hard to play against. The pull is just like an insane engage tool, and then after the pull you have the knockup, so it's just like a really good CC chain. Very strong character specifically for the pull. And then again, he can flex 3 roles. He can play solo jungle, and now he can play support much better than he used to be able to the point where it's actually worth playing it in support if you have the opportunity to. Very strong character right now. Howitzer, just A tier. Um, Not good, not bad. He's just solid. He does a lot of damage. He can play a little bit more support now, since they buffed the grenades and you get a little bit more gold income in general. He's a little bit easier to play in support since you get your items more frequently, and then you're not like stuck on one item as a mage. You can actually play him support now. Not the best support, like it's not like playing Gideon, but he is strong in general. Just a solid pick in mid. Nothing too crazy about Howitzer. You do have to land the ones though. If you're not hitting the ones, he can kind of fall off a little bit. The ult's a little goofy, but it still like does a lot of damage as long as you're able to actually hit it. Albeit it's a little bit not as bursty as it was on the previous patch. Iggy Scorch. He got buffed. I think I would probably put him B tier. I think he's kind of like Gadget. I think games just go too short now. Like it's hard to get to full build, and I think he just requires too many items to be strong. So for that reason, I think he's just B tier right now. Could be good. He's very, especially around objectives, but it just takes too long for him to scale. And people are able to move faster. They're able to hit the turrets from further range with auto attacks and things like that. And it's a lot harder to get value out of Iggy right now, as with just the fast paced meta. Like you can't really sit in the lane right now. You kind of have to be roaming. You have to be doing objectives. You have to be actually team fighting. And I think he just lacks at that unless he's already set up. In which case you're already winning. And if you're already winning, any other character does the same thing. Like they're just going to be strong from ahead. So in that case, I think you just don't pick Iggy. I think he's like a B tier character. Just takes too long to scale. Very similar to Gadget right now. Next up, we have Kallari. I think Kallari's like an A tier character, arguably A plus. I think she's very strong, but I don't think people have figured her out completely yet. She gets an insane amount of regen. From her one, she does a lot of damage. She's a little like goofy, like she feels a little weird to play sometimes, but she's definitely very strong. I would arguably put her A plus tier because she can flex it a solo now, but I just haven't seen her enough to put her higher. I do think people are still kind of figuring out how to play her as well as how to play against her. This pick could very well be A plus tier. I just haven't seen it enough to warrant putting it above A tier. I have played her a few times and she does feel like she does a lot. It's hard to put her higher without seeing her more, especially in like the competitive side. Next up, Khaimera. I haven't seen Khaimera played at all, like literally at all. I don't think I've seen him played a single time. All of his items got nerfed. I'm gonna put him B tier. He could be C tier. He could be A tier. I literally haven't seen. I've maybe seen him once in the 7-8 days that the patch has been out. I think he's still probably decent, but a lot of his items got nerfed. I can imagine with like Agawar and stuff like that, he's probably pretty solid. I'm actually gonna put him A tier. I feel like this character is an A tier character, but I just haven't seen him played, so I can't put him higher. I do think like Sky Splitter gets buffed, that helps him. Overlord got nerfed, that kind of sucks, but Agawar kind of supplements the same position. So I think he's A tier, but I just haven't seen him played. He could be B or C tier for sure. Could also go up. I just haven't seen him enough. One of the only characters I actually haven't seen really at all in this patch. Akira, just A tier ADC. I think she got a little bit worse just because her laning phase is a little bit worse. Her late game's still good. You do require having your actual passive stack to really be relevant, I think, which just makes her a little bit harder to play. Her ult's definitely way better, but it's kind of hard to ult in a team fight without just getting it canceled. I think she's just A tier, not crazy, just a decent ADC that's pretty safe. Kwang's A plus tier for sure. Strong laning phase, incredibly strong jungle. Can be played support, but less likely. Mostly a jungle solo. I think his jungle is incredibly strong right now. His solo is a little bit weaker. But jungle for sure, his character is insane. He does a lot of damage. The attack speed that he gets from his passive now allows him to clear camps incredibly fast. He doesn't get poked out by camps either, so you can actually use your 3 for damage as opposed to a shield when you're clearing, which increases your clear speed even more on top of the attack speed. Very strong character, good ganks. Can lock down characters like Gideon and Countess, one of the only characters that can actually lock these characters down because they have the teleports in their kits. He can just tether them and then CC chain them, and that's really strong. One of the only characters that can actually do that. And then he's also just like, he can play damage, he can play tank, he has a lot of flex options in his build, which just makes him incredibly strong right now. Next up, we have Morgiesh, just an A tier character. She's okay. People haven't been building anti-heal against her. I think she's actually unironically better in solo than she is in mid. I think in mid she still suffers some of the same issues of just getting ganked and like not having range. I think in solo she could be played, but it's very like specific and you can't play it into everything. I think like if you play against Grux, for example, you're just gonna get farmed. If you play against Kwang, you're gonna get farmed. It just kind of depends, and then you also have to be careful of like jungle. She's just okay. I don't think she's insane right now, but I don't think she's like bad either. Definitely better than like Iggy and Gadget and Argus, I think, but not like a primary main pick in my opinion. Not something I would prioritize at least. Moving on, we have Mourn. I think Mourn C tier. It barely got changed at all in the patch, and I think he was already kind of bordering that like A B tier. Didn't get changed at all. Every other character got better. He didn't really get better. So by default, he just goes down. I think he's a C tier character. You could still play him. He still plays 3 roles. He just doesn't excel in any of them. And it's a lot harder to get pulls now that people are a little faster. So his 3's a little bit worse. I think he's just a lot harder to get away with, and I think he is pretty bad right now. I think probably arguably the worst character in the game. I think he gets the least value out of anybody else in the game. Maybe Argus is a little bit worse, but it's really close. They're both pretty bad right now. Murdock, just an A tier character, just an ADC. Nothing crazy, kind of like Kira. Could snowball, cannot snowball. The ult's still fantastic, but he's not like a cut above anybody right now, in my opinion. Just an average character, very similar to Kira and Drongo. Muriel, A plus tier character for sure. Very strong support right now. Shields got buffed. People think she got nerfed because they lowered her own shielding, but they actually increased the effectiveness of shields by allowing them to benefit from protections that people have. So the shield, like, while it might have got reduced by 20 shielding, the actual value of the shield is probably like 200 shield value in comparison. So she gets like really strong now. The shields are incredibly good. Her laning phase is okay. Her passive did get nerfed a little bit early game, but she is still really good. Would highly recommend playing Muriel if you play support. Moving on to Narbash, arguably the best support in the game. I mean, not even really arguably. He's just the best support in the game. He can play jungle and solo now a little bit. He's got like an okay bruiser build that you can go now in those roles, so he's a little bit more of a flex too. He's not limited to the support role, but he is still just a ticking time bomb. If you get this character to late game, you just win the game. Like his team fight is just phenomenal. You just can't kill him, and he just heals an incredible amount right now. Just a very strong character. Definitely the best support. A little bit slower in the laning phase, like early game, but ramps up harder than any other support by far. Phase, B tier character. She's hard to kill, but she doesn't really do much. She also gets hard countered by stuff like Grux or Gideon. Like not being able to pull people at FCC makes her a lot worse. But she is still like okay. She's hard to kill herself, but she just doesn't really bring much to the team. Lance got nerfed. You can't hit people from as far, so you can't set up for people. People are also faster, so it's a little bit harder to like get a full lance on somebody before they get around like a corner. You can't pull people at SCC. You do have a blink on a 60-second cooldown or whenever your one is able to hit somebody, but that doesn't really help you that much. Like, you don't really do much else. Sure, you can bring somebody into the enemy backline, but they could probably get into the enemy backline anyways. It's just not a great character. And even if you blink in and then try to blink out, like you blink in, try to pull somebody, you still have to hit somebody with your one. And if you do, you're then blinking out, and then your blink is on a 10-second cooldown at least, so you could still just get dove. It's just like, she's just not as good. She's kind of fun to play, though, like compared to how she used to be. If you haven't played her, I would probably recommend you try it at least. I just don't think she's like an incredibly valuable character. She's a very low-tempo character, and just very hard to actually get a lot of value out of on the current patch. Rampage, another S tier character. Similar to Grux, he could play 3 roles, has good CC. The rock change makes him incredible. You pull it out so fast, and you can throw it so quickly without getting like movement speed debuffed while you're holding it. Very strong character. Definitely S tier, ban worthy in my opinion. Very strong character. He plays 3 roles. You could play him support now. His support's way better than it used to be. His solo lane is fantastic now that he doesn't get punished for being in the lane. Like, he doesn't get reduced attack speed, so he's like very strong in lanes. And then obviously still a fantastic jungler in my opinion. Going on to the next character, Revenant. I think Revenant's a really good ADC right now. People haven't been playing him as much, but he's insane lane prio, especially if you pair him with somebody that has CC. He sets up perfectly for like a Dekker or a Belica knockup, something like that, Narbash thunk. Anything like that, he can just snowball the lane easily because the root is very easy to hit. You just hit the 2, the 1 guarantees it, and then you just proc your damage and you kill people very easily in the lane. He snowballs with his passive, and then late game he's incredible. He also benefits from attack speed now, which gets him like an insane amount of power. I've had games where I'm playing Revenant and I'm getting 300 power from Revenant passive. Sorry, not 300 power. I'm getting like 160 power, which then puts me up to like 300 power on Revenant easily, just off his passive alone, combined with like 2 or 3 items. Like 2, 3 items, you're hitting 300 power easy on this character right now. Next up, we have Riktor. I think Riktor is C tier. I think Riktor got criminalized this patch. I don't think he's as worse as Mourn. Maybe worse than Morgiesh, but it's like close. He just doesn't have a passive anymore. He can't really play solo lane. Not being able to execute minions with your 2 now makes his solo lane clear a lot worse. He lost a lot this patch, being able to be cancelled at your ult, things like that. He is fun to play though, throwing some jump hooks around, especially with Galaxy Greaves, can be really fun, but he's just pretty bad right now. He just basically doesn't have a passive. Late game, you're like 4 items in, you're hitting somebody with a hook, you get 150 shield. It's just not a good passive. He's very weak right now. Would probably not recommend playing much Riktor at the moment. Seraph, just an A tier character. Not the best, not the worst. Just solid. She didn't really get changed. Just some numbers here and there, but some of her items got nerfed, like Overlord and things like that. She could still benefit from like Agawar and other stuff, but I just think she doesn't have like a fantastic build path right now. And I think that's why she's fallen a little bit, because previous patch she was like S, A plus tier. I think she's just fallen a little bit to A tier. Sevarog, incredible character, A plus tier for sure. Hard to get away with early game, but once you get 40 stacks, very easy character. Once you get 120 stacks, I mean, you're basically Superman at that point. Just struggles in lane a little bit early. Could be played jungle still to great effectiveness. Just has to get those first 40 stacks. The first 40 stacks are where the game is hard. After 40 stacks, character gets significantly better. Shinbi, just A tier. Just solid. Same old Shinbi as always. You farm up, you split push. Your team fight's a little bit better because you can ult multiple people, but it's also harder to kill people because people are a little bit tankier now in general. Like magic defense is a little stronger, etc. I don't think she's bad. She's just A tier. I don't think she's incredible, but definitely can still be played. I think she's mostly a solo laner though. I don't really think you should be playing her in mid. In jungle, I think she's still weak in jungle. She has no CC. Her clear's a little bit slower because her base damage got nerfed. So I think she's just like a little bit worse in jungle. I do think her solo lane is just as good as it's always been. Probably comes down a little bit from the last patch just due to other characters getting better, not necessarily due to her getting worse. Skylar, still A plus tier ADC. Probably the 3rd best ADC, if not the 2nd best, competing with Revenant mostly for that 2nd slot. I think Grim is still at the top. Just safe, very safe character, does a lot of damage. Beam is incredible. That's pretty much it. I mean, not really much to say about Skylar. She didn't really get changed, just some numbers, similar to Seraph. Sparrow, still B tier. She does a lot more damage now. The games are a little faster. She's a hyper carry late game. It's harder to get to that late game stage. She still can't go Eviscerator without getting punished, so that hurts as well. She is a little bit better in lane now, though. Her laning phase is a lot stronger. The ult's a little bit worse, but it still can do a lot late game. She's just a late game hyper carry, and games are just too fast for her to scale. You could argue her A tier, but I think it's just worth putting her in B tier. I don't think you're really picking her over any of the other ADCs right now, so for that reason, I'm just going to put her in B tier. But you could argue her for A tier right now. Steel, very strong character. His passive is absolutely bonkers. You can easily get like 500 armor on this character, like no problem, if not more. Very bonkers character. If you haven't played Steel, highly recommend it. Good solo laner. You can play him jungle, you can play him support. I think he's mainly a solo right now, but he is okay in support and in jungle. So you could play him in those roles as well. But I think he's mainly a solo laner right now. Just neutralizes the lane, especially against characters like Grux or some other characters. The only character you would play this into really is Sevarog. I would not recommend playing Steel into Sevarog. Probably the only character that actually wins the lane against Steel. Other than that, Steel just kind of neutralizes any lane and then becomes a CC powerhouse in the late game. Wall also an incredible ability. They buffed him. Steel passive. He just has Riktor passive now, so he just has a free shield like all the time. Very strong character right now. I haven't been seeing him played as much as I expected to see him played, but every time I have seen him played, he seems to have a very high impact on the game. And then we have Terra. Just numbers changes for this character. Biggest thing, just being Mutilator is like doesn't work as well on her 2 and on her 3, so she doesn't benefit from like lifesteal as much. But for the most part, still the same character. Nothing too crazy about her, just A tier. Can't CC her, but I mean, she runs at your ADC and she either trades or she dies. That's just kind of how she goes. Just a normal character, nothing too crazy about her. Twin Blast, you could argue him A plus tier, but I'm gonna put him A tier just due to the fact that he does take a little bit to scale. Like you can't really just pound people early game like Grim or Revenant can. It does take a little bit to scale, but not as late game oriented as something like Sparrow. Strong character, just not insane. I think people are still kind of figuring out the builds, but I think he is still very strong right now. Moving on to Wraith, they made Wraith way better this patch, way easier to play. Like the grenade's easier to hit, snipes are easier to hit. The snipe goes double auto attack distance now. They increased the distance by 50%, so it's 3,000 units. Rewind is just an insane ability. He has a lot more mobility with the jump now. When he's invis, he gets one free high jump, so you can jump up ledges and things like that. Absolutely insane character. Can play ADC, can play mid. Very strong character right now. I would expect to start seeing Wraith, especially in like comp play. Like he's like a priority pick in my opinion. I think he's ban worthy, arguably in comp. With the 2-ban system in ranked, maybe not, but like he is a very high contested pick in comp and very much worth playing if you haven't. The last S tier character we have is Yin. Yin, probably the only character that's like absolutely farms Rampage. If you're playing against Rampage, just pick Yin. You will just absolutely cook him. Primarily a jungler, can be played like ADC, can be played solo. Like I probably wouldn't, but you definitely can. I've seen it a few times. Specifically, a good counter pick into Rampage. She got buffed this patch. Like people think she got nerfed because they took the root off the 1, but the knockback on her 3 actually is better than the root. And the dash still is at 90% slow, so it's effectively a root almost, for the most part. And then she just like they buffed her 2 damage, like they gave her extra HP shred, so like she's good against people that have IHP like Rampage. They buff Sky Splitter for melee characters. She gets an extra 2% max HP damage with Sky Splitter because she counts as a melee character, so she's hitting for 6% with Sky Splitter plus like 5% from her 2. So every third auto you're just doing 10% max HP on somebody. Well, 10% current HP. Very strong character right now. Haven't been seeing her played as much. In my opinion, she's ban worthy. This is my ban. Typically, when I play ranked, like I'm banning Yin over any of the other characters up here because I think this character is just insane. Not really being played as much as she should. Definitely still ban worthy character. Definitely S tier character. Arguably the best jungler in my opinion. Right up there with like Rampage and Grux. And Countess. Like she is definitely on par with all of those characters. She is insane in my opinion. And I would definitely expect to see her get played a lot more and people kind of realize how strong she actually is. Zarus, probably one of the only Amino originals that like didn't really get touched at all. He just got like a little bit of reduced range on his 3. I've played him a few times. I've seen him played a few times. He just seems the same as he was last patch, just A tier. Not insane. You don't have to max the 1 now to get the damage mitigation, so that's really nice. You can level the 2 second, like his dash second, to just get base stats like movement speed and attack speed. Not insane character, just solid, just a solid A tier. And then lastly, we have Zinx. Zinx, again, just an A tier character. Didn't really get changed at all. Nothing too much with her passive. Just not being as potent, and then her 2 being a lob projectile, so it can like hit people and then drop straight down as opposed to going through them. But then that didn't really get changed. Ult's still incredible. Healing's still really nice. Laning phase is still strong. Just not the best support right now. Just A tier. Just a solid character. Nothing wrong with her. If you made it this far into the video, I appreciate it. I hope you have a good rest of your day. If you have any opinions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm always reading and responding to comments. So if you have any disagreements or anything you might want to talk about or like any more reasoning for things, feel free to just let me know in the comments and I'll get to it when I can. But other than that, I appreciate you watching and I hope you have a good rest of your day.